Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to Girl, You're a Goddess, the sacred space where we get real about stepping into your feminine power, owning your worth, and creating a life that feels deliciously aligned. I'm Hilary Burton, a women's empowerment coach, therapist, and professional dominatrix. Think of me as your personal guide and hype woman on this journey to unleash your deepest confidence, sensuality, and self-love. Around here, we're all about feminine energetics, mindset shifts, sensual embodiment, confidence, manifestation, you name it. If you're ready to heal, rise, and start living like the goddess you are, you're in the right place. So pour your tea, pop that bubbly, and let's dive in. Meet our guest, Emily. Emily Reuschel is a soul expansion coach for wild and waking women, guiding leaders, dreamers, and change makers, particularly in rural communities, through the powerful journey of reclaiming their truest selves. Through her work, Emily guides women home to themselves, helping them live with alignment, purpose, and intention. Known for challenging the status quo, which I love, Emily empowers women to break free from inherited limitations, embody their truth, and create lasting impact in their lives and communities. Emily, thank you so much for joining us today.
You know, there's nothing more awkward than listening to someone read your professional bio. You're like, yes, I do that. And I did write that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here.
That is, well, it's an honor. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited to dive in because you and I have a very similar mindset about breaking free from limiting beliefs, expectations. I love your quote in there about getting out of the status quo because that's what we're here to do. So
yes,
tell us a little bit about how you started and your journey here.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. This is a can of worms we could talk about for a very long time, but I'm actually going to scroll all the way back to 2019. So as we were talking about before we hit record, I live in a town of 43 people, a very rural farming community in West Central Illinois. And professionally, I was an elementary school teacher. I married a farmer. They like write country songs about that, right? The farmer and the teacher and all of that. And then, right. And I just had, going back to living into expectations, I had this very preconceived idea of what my life was going to look like, right? Which I think a lot of us were consciously or unconsciously handed, right? Like do really well in school, get really involved, get into a good college, like get the internships, get the degree, get the job, get married, have babies, live happily ever after. Like that's it.
Same exact story, girl. Yes.
Yes. And most of the women I work with did that and then found themselves in a situation like what the F is happening here? Like I am so grateful for all of these blessings.
Is this what this is all about? What?
Yeah. I'm so grateful for all these blessings in my life, but like I'm also low-key miserable. This is it. What's wrong with me? Clearly I'm broken. So in 2019, I had this moment after my second child was born. I was working at a nonprofit at the time after leaving the classroom. And I was 6 months postpartum, which, we're just all squishy and weird and feeling out of sorts. But really, underneath it all was years, if not decades, of self-sacrifice, of trying to earn, improve my worth and love through achievement, accolades, approval, right? Trying to be the best mom, the best wife, the best employee. I had always been in service roles as a teacher in the nonprofit space. Like I just wanted to do a good job and make the world a better place, to the point that I was like so far on the back burner, which I know so many women can relate to.
Yes.
So I had this moment. My daughter was 6 months old. I had just come off a really crazy season at work. I was pumping like 8 million times a day, in addition to nursing her around the clock. And I just had such a clear feeling of like, I hate the way I feel right now.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I would be devastated if my daughter felt this way someday.
Yeah.
And here we are now, 5-6 years later, like it still makes me cry to think about that moment, because it was just like such a realization of like, I have been living not with intention, but really just going through the motions that everyone else had told me that I needed to do. And it was like a defining moment in like, I have got to do something. And so it
Yes.
started with a health journey rooted in love instead of shame. You know, we're a
Yes.
product of the 90s diet culture, right? But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what makes me feel good? How do different foods make me feel, right? Which
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
was like the gateway to this world of personal growth and development. This was like the height of the
Yes.
Rachel Hollis era. And
Mhm.
I became obsessed with just suddenly having the realization that I had independence and autonomy over my life.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I started, you know, going down that path. I went from being like the opposite of a runner to running a half marathon, yada, yada, yada. But what ultimately got me into the work that I'm doing today is, you know, I was kind of involved in all of these online spaces related to personal growth, habits, goals, yada, yada, yada. And I didn't see anything reflected in the ag rural spaces where people were having these conversations. And I very much had this moment of like, well, why not me? So I did what any sane person does in the pandemic. And I started an Instagram account purely to connect with other like-minded women from around the country and beyond who identified of living in small towns or rural communities, but didn't want to live into the limitations that had been ascribed to them. Right. And
Yeah.
so since 2020, right, that has totally transformed and evolved from like habits and goals into my own mental health journey where I confronted this achievement, approval, accolades, addiction.
Oh my God.
To
That
then, yeah, to then like a deeper healing journey where I started just exploring more and more modalities, which then just opened up to this, I guess you could call it like a spiritual awakening alongside asking a much bigger set of questions. Is like, okay, like the habits and the goals and all of that are great, but like, what's really going on beneath the surface here that is actually causing at a systemic level women to feel like they are not enough, like they are failing, like they are so disconnected from themselves, from each other, from the way we are meant to be existing, which has really just ultimately brought me into the reclamation or the owning the title of a soul expansion coach for wild and waking women. And so, yeah, that's now I host masterminds and retreats and a podcast and travel all across the country to speak. And I'm just absolutely in so many ways living my wildest dreams, which is very cool.
Love, love, love. And you are living your wildest dreams as you are meant to, as we are all meant to, because we're not meant to be living in mediocrity and just settling and doing the day to day. And it's funny because you and I had such a similar journey into that. Almost experience for experience. That's how I would describe my journey through that. Except in my process, I ended up getting divorced and realized my husband and I wanted very different things and we were going different directions. And so after that, I went through the health and wellness journey, right? And I feel like that's the like the gateway drug into getting into energetics and then spirituality, because it's like, okay, I've honed in my body, I've honed in my diet, I get movement now, but there's still something else missing. And why do I still feel like I'm hitting these roadblocks? Like I have all the discipline in the world, I have the mindset, I know what I need to do, but why do I still not feel worthy? Why am I still putting everyone else ahead of myself? And so, then we get into the energetics and the reclamation, the remembering of who we truly are.
At a point in time where across the board, women are waking up feels like such a blanket term, but like in these different pockets, right? And in the areas that they really care about, right? Like challenging the food system or healthcare or, you know, religion, politics, the way we raise our kids, the way we treat moms and babies in the birth and postpartum experience, right? And so there's this like really collective energy that I feel over the past, I think especially 5 years of like, wait, this is so misaligned and I don't think it has to be this way. Like, how did we get here? And then once you start going down your individual path, if you're willing to sit in the discomfort, it is just like a continuation of like unraveling and connecting the dots. And like you said, remembering and being like, oh, this is so much bigger than this like one entry point that I walked into.
Yeah, and you look back at all of those things, and same for me. Like a lot of those things stem from my childhood, the need to
Mm-hmm.
get validation, the need to prove my worth through achievements. And then I was doing
Mm-hmm.
that later on in life.
Yeah.
We're worthy just because we exist. We don't
Yeah.
need to prove our worth to anyone. And so I love that so much. And I do agree that this is a huge time of awakening for so many women. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right. Everyone has their own kind of little area that they start to question and start to look
Mm-hmm.
at. And then I feel like that literally opens Pandora's box of, well, wait a minute, but why?
Yeah.
So if we're looking at the food, then it's like, well, why are we programmed to exercise the same way as men? Why
Mm-hmm.
is like our daily schedule the same way as men? We have different hormonal cycles. And then it's like, well, why
Yes.
is the medical system the way it is? And then,
Yeah. And it's like all connected, which is like so enlightening and infuriating because you're like,
yeah,
literally, how did we get here? And then how do we get out?
it is because it seems so massive, right? And there's so
Mm-hmm.
many things that need to be changed. But I mean, it literally starts with each and every one of us prioritizing
Yes.
ourselves one at a time. So we're here, we're doing that. But, and
Mm-hmm.
my favorite way to go about it is to tackle some of the sexual shame and the
Mm.
suppression around women's
Yeah.
sensuality, around women's bodies. And there is no reason that our desires or our
Mm-hmm.
actions should be shamed
Yeah.
or we should be in this state of guilt. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
what I love about breaking out of that status quo because I'm going to do what I choose. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Been bent to my knees. There's nothing shameful about that,
Yeah.
right? There's no suppression of my sexual energy in that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what's beautiful about helping women step out of that and break into
Yes.
their own realm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that goes back to this like systemic disconnection that women have from themselves and each other and the way we are meant to exist on this planet. Like,
Yeah.
really, over the past 6 months, I've been diving into. The onset of the patriarchy and the roles that religious institutions and colonization played into, I mean, everything, but
Yes.
especially like
Yeah.
the systemic removal of women who were in touch with their pleasure and their power and their wisdom and their healing and their knowing. And so when you look at now the shame and guilt and fear and insecurities and bullshit that we
Mhm.
feel around pleasure, sexuality, all of that. It's like, well, no wonder we are literally bearing the weight of
Yes.
hundreds of years of generations of suppression. And so
Mhm.
it is such a liberation to realize like we do not have to hold that anymore and we can
Yeah.
reclaim and take ownership of our autonomy, our agency, our pleasure, our joy, our intuition, our everything.
Yes. Yes. Girl, I'm so I'm so glad you brought that up because I was like, are we gonna get into the patriarchy or no?
Oh, we can go literally anywhere because, like I said, like over the past, I would say 18 months, especially, like once you start asking bigger questions,
Huh? Yeah.
it's like it's not just one thing; it's everything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Have you
so I
read have you read When God Was a Woman?
no, but it's on my list. Um, Mary Magdalene Revealed was one of the first things that I was like,
Ooh,
this feels. Have you read that?
that's on my list.
Oh my
We
gosh, it's so good. It felt like, I mean, I was raised, in a Christian household, going to church, whatever. Mary Magdalene Revealed felt like the answers to questions I didn't even know I was asking. It was
Mhm.
like truth that, like, in reading it, my body was like, yeah, duh. But,
Yeah.
like, oh, no,
Yeah.
When God Was a Woman, I've heard that's amazing also.
And all of that is completely erased because those are powerful
Mm-hmm.
women who stepped outside of the norm of what women were supposed to be, just the submissive good wife.
Mm-hmm.
And girl, getting into God Was a Woman, I've read like 3/4 of it. To hear about how religion literally came in and wiped out every single
Yes.
remnant of goddess worship
Mm-hmm.
and the reverence for the feminine body, for
Mm-hmm.
the feminine sexuality. Like
Mm-hmm.
women were revered.
Yeah.
Multiple women would have sex with one man in the village that they deemed worthy, And that
Mm-hmm.
was it. Like they were not in, men were not
Yeah.
in their homes. They chose who they wanted to be with. They chose the strongest man to have a child with.
I know a few months ago, I listened to it was like a 2 hour digital course that my business coach put
Yeah.
out. It was called Her. And it was
Yeah.
like, going back 35,000 years
Yes.
in, early cultures and civilizations and like the goddess centric that
Yes.
I'll send you the link. We can put it
Yeah.
in the show notes. Katie Stewart is amazing. But
Oh,
just even having like the chronological timeline of
yeah.
it. And again, it was like, duh,
Yes.
of
Yeah.
course. Like it
Yeah.
just, and then she brought it all the way up into modern times and how these
Yeah.
onsets of colonization and the spread of, all of the things we're talking about have just gotten us to the place that we're at today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I will twist my arm. I'll put it on my Amazon cart or somewhere.
I have to say, I did have quite an episode of Feminine Rage while listening to it because some of it is just so brutal. And I feel like it was centuries of my ancestors.
Mhm.
I was feeling that and I was like, this is like what they experience and what they put up. Ooh, mm-mm, mm-mm. No, no, no.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I would love your perspective on this too. I've seen a few posts over the past couple of weeks that are kind of like criticizing the way people are talking about the defined feminine and how like it's putting people into unnecessary boxes and roles, and like I feel like has this very like trad wife archetype of just being like gentle and submissive and light and delicate. And I'm like, oh no, the more I study the divine feminine, the more I'm full of like passion and rage
Yeah.
and leadership and like, and so I think it's really interesting now that people are starting to have this conversation through
Mhm.
which lens they're using that term to
Yeah.
describe the experience.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I feel like one of the reasons I kind of stepped into the path I did as well was because most of the things that I were finding about the divine feminine were very soft and flowy and light. And
Mm-hmm.
we also need like
Fire.
feminine. Yes, we need that passion and that feminine rage. And also, when you think of goddesses, like they were warriors.
Mm-hmm.
They would literally wage war if a wrong was done to them. Like they weren't just sitting there looking pretty all
Yeah.
day. They were handling shit.
Uh-huh.
So, and then also
Yeah.
it's the balance of our feminine and masculine. We all have that. And so it's bringing in some of that
Right.
masculine for the structure, for the logic, for some of the
Mm-hmm.
things that we need to get done, especially when we're building businesses as female entrepreneurs. Like
Mm-hmm.
we need to incorporate that as well. So it's not just that we're floating fairies and, we're not here in the
Mm-hmm.
3D, nothing exists. Like
Yes.
we get it. But
Yeah, because
also,
I think that can be really unhealthy too when you go down this rabbit hole. It's just like fully
yeah,
dissociating from reality. Like, that's also not something I want to be a part of. Like, I really love my very real life with my chaotic children and, you know,
yes, that's such a healthy state though. And I feel like a lot of people will get into the spirituality because they are unhappy with their lives. And so it
mm-hmm.
seems like a different reality they can live in. It's kind of like drugs or alcohol, it's that
Yep.
escapism. But combining that 5D reality, knowing that there's the creator of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
God, whatever we want to call it, and then we are still here in the 3D and we are making changes here in this world. And like, that's why we chose to be here.
Yes.
We chose to be here
Yes.
to make those things happen. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, love. I love this. It was actually one of the things that you wanted to talk
Mm-hmm.
about. What happens when you outgrow the version of yourself that everyone still expects you to be?
Oh my goodness. Okay, first of all, I have lived this
Mhm.
so many times in really big ways and in really like micro shifts ways, right? Like the first time that I went through this within myself, not that I feel like anyone was actually imposing this on me, but like a really big identity shift is when I left the classroom, right?
Mhm.
Like I thought I was going to be a teacher forever. And now suddenly I feel this pull to not be like, who
Yeah.
am I if I'm not a teacher? Which is so funny looking back because I've always been a teacher and I will always be a teacher. But
Yeah.
I had so
Yeah.
much of my worth and identity and my degree and my expectations of myself wrapped up in that, that it was
Yeah.
like my first, like really having to unravel and figure out like, who am I in the absence of this thing, which I think translates.
Okay, question real quick though. That was 6 months postpartum with your second kiddo? Yeah?
No, that was 2017.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't go that far back. We could.
That's okay.
No, I had just started at a different school in really close to the town that we live in. I had my son in March. I went on maternity leave. And then it was the middle of the summer. Having a spring baby is the best if you're a teacher, by the way. If anyone's been a teacher, you know. And I just happened to be scrolling Facebook very unceremoniously, as we do, and saw an ad for our local YMCA for a program director. And literally, like full body lightning. I had never even set foot in this building before. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was in charge of summer camp, after school, youth and family programming, yada, yada, yada. All stuff very much within my wheelhouse. I was like a professional camp counselor at that point. So on a total whim, applied, interview, got the job, which ended up being such a powerful experience because suddenly I was pushed into learning and doing things that teachers don't do. Right? I was like in charge of a massive budget, and I was the marketing department, and I was creating programs and hiring staff and just doing all of these things that I would have never had the opportunity to do in the classroom. And it exploded my belief of what was possible for myself.
That's so powerful.
But it was such a weird transition into a different kind of leadership role, right? Because teaching is very much a leadership role, but a different kind of role and way of being, in a way that just totally recalibrated for the first time what work looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I was there for 4 years after the transition. So it was a really good experience. But then, you know, to even just bring this back to the question you asked, about halfway through my time there, I can identify now I hit a really high level of burnout, right? I had 2 young kids, was bleeding myself out to do the best job possible because I want to make the world a better place and I want everyone to love me. Think I'm doing a good job. And instead of recognizing, oh, I'm really burnt out, maybe it's time to consider something different, I was just like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so lazy? Why can't I get my shit together? Why is this suddenly so hard? I like doubled down on shame and guilt and frustration before, you know, a year or 2 later, realizing, wait a second, like I don't actually have to do this. And my coworker at the time, you know, when I finally said out loud, like, I don't want to be here anymore. She's like, well, what are you going to do? Change jobs every 4 years? And it was in that moment that I'm like, actually, why is that a problem? Right?
Yeah.
And now I know that I have raging ADHD, and it's actually a really good thing for me to be an entrepreneur and always have different ideas and programs and like be kind of changing what I'm doing. But like that was really a big initiation in breaking out of someone else's expectations, right? Because I'd been like, okay, I left the teaching thing. Now this is my thing. I'm going to build the rest of my career here. You know, I left that thing that wasn't for me. Now this is it.
Yeah. Why is there this pressure around we have to be stuck in something? We have to have this stability in a job for 10 years. I feel like a lot of that is the previous generation and our parents' generation, like pushing upon us. You have to get retirement from a place. If you don't put 20 years into a company, you're not a good employee. You know, the world doesn't work like that anymore. And so to think that it's a negative thing to go out and try something new, when you think about positive development, like personal development, when you think about evolution, that's a positive thing to be going out and getting new experiences, learning new skills. And like,
absolutely. And especially for women. I mean, if we're talking about the career workforce, right? Because I've coached a lot of women in different career situations up until this point. Like women are better paid and move up, you know, on the corporate ladder, if that's what they desire, or in whatever they desire, by switching jobs, switching organizations, slightly switching the roles that they're doing. Like actually, especially for women, although this is also true for men, staying in one place, in one organization for a career will drastically
Yeah.
slow down and suppress like your ability to climb and build and evolve and grow compared to, you know, getting to the point that you feel like you've done what you're meant to do there and giving yourself permission to evolve. But so many of the women I work with, even in business, get really trapped in, no, I said I was going to do this. I need to do it, or else I'm a quitter, or my boss is going to be mad at me, or my husband's not going to understand, or the girls from high school are going to blah, blah, blah. Or even in business, being like, you know, even fairly recently, like I had really built and cultivated my following around personal and professional growth for rural women, women in agriculture, small towns, rural communities. And over the past year, once I started really expanding into some of these other topic areas of things that I was interested in, I felt so much resistance around the way I was growing and like who I felt like people expected me to be and what they expected me to believe in and say and vote for and align with. And as I was like going through this rapid expansion within myself, my identity was like quantum leaping. I started to feel like I was in a glass box that I had created. Like I was wearing sweaters that were like old and wet and heavy, and it doesn't mean I didn't like them at some point, but they like no longer fit and I couldn't get them off fast enough. So I kind of went through this like rejection of that identity. And now I've kind of come back to a really healthy place of like, oh no, I am leading the way in this space for the other women who feel like aliens in this space, which is the same freaking thing I did when I started anyway, right? We always come full circle one way or another. But to answer your initial question, I think that we feel so much tension when we go through an identity evolution for a lot of reasons. The expectations we have of ourselves, the expectations we have of other people, and the projections we put upon them that we then self-impose. And really like a lifetime of living by a set of rules that we never actually agreed to. So part of it is like the willingness to sit in the discomfort to measure your expectations of yourself and what other people expect of you and weigh that against, is that something that I actually believe or want to continue to subscribing to? And what else could be true, right? Because left to our own devices, we like comfort. We like our comfy little boxes, even if we're miserable in them, because they are safer than the unknown. So part of it is like the willingness to step into the discomfort and go through that messy middle process of like unraveling and rebuilding your identity as you step into your next season, whether that's in motherhood, career, personal growth, spirituality, whatever.
And I feel like there's so much comfort in the safety too. And so I did a very similar thing when I started business because I'm an occupational therapist. And so I had worked at a clinic for 10 years. And then I decided I was going to start my own therapy practice because I put myself in the box of I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. And this is all I can do. This is all I'm going to do. This is what I went to school for. This is what I got my degree. But, you know, that was what I thought I was going to do forever, and put myself in that box. And so then as I ventured out into business with that, it was like, okay, this still wasn't the fulfillment that I hoped it would be. Thought that this would be what was fulfilling. This would be the magic key to what I felt like I was missing, was me owning my own practice and being my own boss and leading that. And I was like, okay, well, that's still not it. But I had to go through literally like many ego deaths, so much growth about I don't have to be in this box. And just because I got my education, I could use that in a different way. I don't have to use it at all. And that's also, and I had to process so much like pressure and judgment from my family, right? About stepping into something different. And there was so much of that, but also being able to let go of all of that. Like, is that important to me? No. Do they live a life that I want to live? No. How much do I value their opinion about what I'm doing? Is that important to me or not? And it's putting those things into perspective, because my journey and my path was so much more important than anyone's thoughts about it. And so being able to let go of even the consequences of that, you know, and then even furthering that through my dominatrix journey, because that changed every, well, in my mind, I was like, that's going to change everyone's perception of me. It really didn't.
Yeah.
The feedback was so incredibly positive because they saw a woman owning her power and her sensuality, and it was empowering. It was encouraging. And so that was incredible. But girl,
It's
the
hard. Well, and
yeah,
then another thing that I like to really walk my clients through, because I think we have this like conflict within ourselves of like, I don't care what they think. I know this is meant for me. Why can't I just do it? But then we're like, but why am I still tethered? Why can't I just do it? And so I
yeah,
like to also just remind myself and everyone that like we are a communal species. Of
yeah, yeah,
course, we crave belonging. We crave safety. We crave for the people in our village, whatever that means, right? Your
yes,
family, your
yeah, yeah,
friends, your neighbors. Like, because at one point in time, if you were not welcomed, accepted, a part of your village and you were ostracized for whatever reason, that was
right,
danger. Danger.
yeah,
So it is a very real biological response that as we go beyond the pale, as we go outside of the expectations that we've set for us or other people have imposed upon us, of course it feels
yeah,
viscerally
yeah,
terrifying. And sometimes just acknowledging like I'm not wrong or broken
mhm,
or, you know,
mhm,
doing it incorrectly because I'm feeling this way can be like, and then you go into grounding into
yeah,
like, and so often, what we assume is going to happen
mhm.
versus the reality are like
Really different.
disjointed.
Yeah,
And if you talk to anyone who is really on the other side of
yeah,
something where they did go through some shit, where they were, you
mhm,
know,
mhm,
no contact or really like lost
yeah,
friends or relationships along the way, I
yeah,
have yet to meet a person who was like, oh, it wasn't worth it. Like they're always like, I am free, I am liberated, I am full
yeah,
of joy, I am living my purpose, I am living my truth. I am surrounded by so many wonderful people now. I'm not living in this shame and fear and guilt and
yes,
whatever. But that doesn't negate the fact that it's really fucking hard along the way.
yes. And I like to share that because I want people to know that it's difficult. It's
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It can be terrifying. It can be incredibly stressful, you know, but same exact thing. Like, I wouldn't change any of that because I know the people that are in my life now are people that love me for all of me and they
Yeah.
accept all of me, just not the parts that they know about, just not the parts that they choose. So that
Mm-hmm.
was so impactful in knowing that I will surround myself with people that love me as a whole. So that
Yeah.
changed.
I mean, if you're in a situation where you're continuously code switching to the point of like you cannot be your fully authentic self around
So
most
draining.
people in your life, that
Yeah.
is so draining of your life
Yeah.
force and your energy and like
Mhm.
really builds that dissonance between who your authentic self is and the
Yes.
perception that you're required to maintain in order to keep the status quo or keep the
Yeah.
relationship. And at some
Yeah.
point, you have to be like, this is not worth it. I need to be the, you know, the a
Mhm.
full expression of myself everywhere.
Yes, that was me. That was totally me. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I can't continue this. I can't keep this up. I can't be one person here and one person there and doing all of
Mm-hmm.
this. I felt like I was living a double life, and I was like,
Yeah.
this isn't me. And girl, I'm a Scorpio. I value honesty,
Mm-hmm.
reliability, you know, truth,
Mm-hmm.
trustworthiness. And I was like, I don't feel clear. I
Yes.
don't feel authentic. I don't feel raw and like true with everyone that I know. So I was like, this has to stop.
Yeah. Well, you're not in integrity with yourself, which is ultimately
No.
what makes you feel the most like shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a definitely a painful process, but so incredibly worth it. I wouldn't change
Yeah.
any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it makes us value where we're at even more right now because
Mm-hmm.
now I'm so thankful for the freedom and the
Yeah.
freedom to just be me. So yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. How do you reclaim your voice in communities where it hasn't always been safe to speak?
Woo, girl. I feel like, well, first of all, this is something that myself and so many women in my community are living, right? And I think that this there are parts of this that are true no matter where you live, right? Like, because we create the spaces, the communities around us. But in your, when, you know, if you are in a small town where literally everyone knows everyone, right? 43 people here, right? It takes like 12 towns to make up my school district, right? It is such an interesting dance to try to go through the process of figuring out who you are when there are very rigid or at least perceived expectations around what is worthy, good, acceptable, valid, the norm. Okay. And I think that this shows up in other areas too, right? Like anyone who has been raised in a really high control religion has gone through this process of reckoning, you know, if they're not a part of that anymore, of like, who am I outside of this thing? Like, how do I speak my truth knowing that it is not going to be accepted, right? And so I think that there's several different layers to this, and it's not always crystal clear, right? Like, I mean, anyone can find my podcast or my Instagram and actually figure out what's going on in my head, right? But like, I don't go out of my way to necessarily broadcast everything that I'm doing to the full extent, like right in front of my neighbors, right? Okay. And also, when I started my initial Instagram, I like made it separate from my normal one because I was like, I don't want anyone to find this. But what's been so right, I mean, like, whatever. It's fine. I don't regret it, but it's just funny now.
The age of the season, we learned.
Right. But it's so interesting because some of my favorite clients, I don't actually have favorite clients, right? Okay. Some of the women I have loved working with have been fairly local to me. I mean, within like 30 minutes, right? Wow. And the number of people, right? I came in with all of these assumptions, even back when I was talking about like habits and goals and things like that. I'm like, oh, this is so weird. No one's going to understand this, right? I don't know anyone else around here who's doing anything like this. But the number of people who have been like, oh, I'm so inspired by what you do. It's given me the idea to do X, Y, and Z. Or, you know, at school pickoff, and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this podcast episode. And I'm like, oh my God, you heard that. Right? Or like the texts I get from people, even from episodes that I'm like, ooh, this is kind of pushing the boundary. The texts I get from people that are like, I have literally never heard anyone say this before. Like that was the biggest light bulb for me. Right? And so I think no matter what community you're in, we have these projections and expectations as to what everyone else is doing.
Yes.
And everyone's sitting around having all these projections of what everyone else is doing, right? But when you start speaking your truth, when you start living into your authentic self and using your voice and shifting your identity and potentially sharing it in whatever capacity makes sense, like you really do invite people to go deeper into their journeys and live more as their authentic self or ask their own set of questions, right?
And I feel like it's especially powerful because you are in that community. And so women in that community are seeing you doing it rather than just someone from the outside, someone online who they feel like wouldn't understand where they're coming from, you know? And so I think because you are there and they could already relate to you, they're like, oh, wow. If she's doing it, then it's possible for me. And I love that it's like your alter ego in the school pickup line because you're like, wait, you know about that?
Oh, dude. Okay. Right. And it's so funny because when I started my business, I felt, you know, so much fear of what are people going to think. And then I got to the point that I'm like, if you don't understand or don't get or criticize what I'm doing, like you wouldn't do that if I was a teacher. Like, I'm happy. I'm feeding my family. I'm having the time of my life. Like everything's going really well. If you don't get that, you're not happy for me. Like that's on you. Right. And so I think a lot of this comes back to, for me, the more that I have cultivated my self-trust, the more that I genuinely know, like, and trust myself, the less freaked out I am by what anyone else is doing or what their perception of what I'm doing is, right? But I think when we already feel insecure and we're doing new things,
Yeah.
or trying on new identities or evolving in some way. And then someone comes in with a comment that just like sticks right where
Mhm.
you're already feeling unshaky. That's
Yeah.
where we're like, oh my goodness, like the world is ending and everything is over,
Yeah.
right?
Those
And
ones
so for
really rock the
me,
boat. It's
yeah,
in between, in those growth stages where you're like, am I ready for this? And then someone really comes in and kind
yeah.
of with that.
Right. And so, I mean, yeah, I think that there's something to be said for being loud and proud and out there about whatever you're doing. But I think it's also okay to
Yeah.
like have it be like a gradual uncovering within these circles of safety and in
Yes.
ways that feel physically, mentally, and emotionally safe for
Yeah.
you and for your family.
Yeah.
And it's okay if some pieces of that are like protected. Not that you're necessarily hiding them, but
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
maybe you're not wearing the t-shirt that says everything that you believe that you know is like countercultural to the
Yeah.
people around you and not looking to start a
Yeah.
fight, right? And I'm not, if that's what you want to do too, that's fine. I'm just giving the permission of like everything doesn't always have to be all or nothing. But for
Yeah.
me, I have cultivated my community and my clients and my friends who I trust and who I know me for the fullest extent to my expression and my authentic self. So I don't
Yeah.
need everyone else to know
Yes.
every single bit in order to feel worthy, loved, approved, received, etc. And whoever is meant to find you will
Yes.
find you and be inspired by it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. People will find it when they're meant to. And it doesn't always
Yes.
need to be all of this stuff in your face at once. You know, people will gradually dive in and then they'll be like, oh, I'm
Yes.
really interested in that. What else does she do? And then they get deeper and
Mm-hmm.
deeper. And then it could be an ideal client or it could be someone who's not the right fit for you. And that's great
Right.
because it funnels itself out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, when you build that no trust factor with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it reduces the expectation that anyone has to get it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I am not trying to make everyone believe what I believe
Yeah.
or do what I do or give a
Right.
stamp of approval to my way of being and belief system. My invitation is always trying to help people, especially women, go further down their journey.
Yes.
What
Yes.
truths are you uncovering within yourself? What expectations are you shedding? What does alignment and authenticity and purpose look like in your life? And when you individually get really rooted and grounded in that, then
Yeah.
again, like the more and more women who are grounded in their truth, in their authenticity, and their intuition, and their understanding, the less we feel this like competitive ranking system of like whether or
Right.
not we fit in.
Yes. Yes. No, that's so true. And going back to when you were talking about how you don't need everyone else's permission, you don't need everyone else's validity about what you're doing, that gives you your power. Like that means that
Yes.
you're holding your power and that everyone else's thoughts and judgments and ideas don't have power over you. And that's where truth comes from. That's
Very
where
much
we're
so.
building things out of alignment. So
Yes.
I love that. And yes, same thought process with your dream life is your own dream life. That can look like whatever you want. And so it's not that we all have to go down the same path, but it's looking at the things that you feel have held you back. It's looking at the things that are still stopping you from becoming that dream version of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a forever journey. Like I've also reduced or eliminated the expectation that there's ever any level of making it.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
like logically we know that, but I feel like I definitely went through a season where I was like trying to personal growth myself into this like perfect ideal version of who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And in so many ways I'm living that in real time. And then guess what? You go deeper and then you're in this like shitstorm death portal again and like going into something else, right? There's like embracing the seasonality of life. Like there are times that you are blooming and thriving and abundant and just like, yes, I am in my purpose and this is amazing. And then autumn always comes and you start shedding shit. And then you're like in the winter where it's hard and you feel like you're never going to see the sun again and never figure it out. And then all of a sudden, yes. And then it clicks and like you start opening up and making new connections and like rebuilding your new identity. And then there you are, right? And so wherever you are at, listener, just know like you are exactly where you're meant to be. Yes. And God, whoever willing, you have so many years on this planet to become everything that's meant for you.
Yeah. Listeners, let's give them 2 steps. So what 2 steps would you give them today to start that journey? What are 2 things, 2 modalities, 2 pieces of advice, 2 questions they could ask themselves?
Yes. Okay. So if you're anything like me, we love a goal. We love like a where do you see yourself in 5 years? Let me write the checklist. Give me the bullet points. Give me the exact path. Here's like the 5-step program that's going to help me get from where I am to where I want to be. Okay. That's not working anymore for where we're at in our journey. So let's stop applying SMART goals to where we're at today. Okay. But we all do it. We're like, I want full independence and autonomy over my life. But can someone also tell me exactly how to do it? Okay. Yeah. So a question that I really like to ask first is just like to remove the pressure, the expectations, the checklist, the timeline. And I like to put on some, like vibey journaling music playlists from Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and get a big blank piece of paper or your notebook or whatever, set a timer for 10 minutes minimum, and continuously respond to the prompt, wouldn't it be cool if? Like, if I gave you a magic wand, what would you love to be true, whether today, 10 years from now, end of life, and I mean go anywhere and everywhere with it. There is nothing too small or too batshit crazy to write down. We are not turning this into outcomes for the next year. I just want you to get into this subconscious state of wouldn't it be cool if, right? And when every time I introduce this activity, I'm like, if you ask my now 6-year-old this question, she's gonna be like, if I was a mermaid princess under the sea, right? And you like giggle, right? Because you're like, that's cute, but that's never possible. Have you ever gone down the Instagram or TikTok rabbit holes of finding the girls who cosplay as mermaids and make so much freaking money? Yeah. And they literally, they have like they have a whole closet of mermaid costumes and tiaras, and they're like
literally at this point, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible.
So, like, my daughter can be a mermaid.
Yeah. Yep.
So, anyway, just wouldn't it be cool if? And I mean, people always roll their eyes at me. They're like, yeah, I did it for like a minute. I'm done. No. I mean, keep going. More detail, more information, more dreaming, more big, more small. How do you want to feel?
Like the deepest depths of desire and creation and imagination. Like, keep making it bigger. Yes.
Yes. Love. And it can be everything from something that sounds insane to like your day-to-day reality, right? Because your life is actually made up of your average Tuesdays, not these like big benchmarks that we reach when we launch the book or whatever. Okay. So then from there, because you asked for a step 2, I think you can use that to get curious and be like, okay, so here's my wouldn't it be cool if list. And a lot of times we look at that, we're like, oh my gosh, that's so far away from where I'm at right now. But really, a lot of times you can trace that back to the way you want to feel, or something that feels like it's missing, or something where you are feeling overwhelmed. And so you can use that list to even just get curious around like, okay, maybe I'm not going to be a mermaid tomorrow. But like, what does that really connect back to? Maybe it's like this sense of play. Maybe it's like wanting to pretend or be in the water. Okay, well, can I go swimming tomorrow? Like, can I make time to put on a fancy outfit that makes me feel like a princess, right? And so some of these things that feel super far away, we can actually bring that back to how could I create my reality tomorrow in a way that feels more like this thing
Yeah.
that might be far away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think from there, I mean, there's a million, when you're going down identity exploration, there's a lot of rabbit holes we can go down, right? But that at the very bare minimum can give us a lot of clues as to where are we in misalignment? What are we curious about? What are we craving? What are we missing? What is no longer serving us? We've talked about that a lot, right? Like, what have you worked so hard for or built or done that's just like ain't it, but you're scared to say it out loud? And so you can just use that as a launch point for curiosity to then, you know, what podcast could I listen to support me in that? What little thing could I do tomorrow? What book can I add to my cart? Go to the library, like whatever.
It opens up your mind to like so many opportunities though, and other things you hadn't even considered that are possible, right? Because it's like, okay, well, I have this big, big dream, but if I can implement a small step of that tomorrow, that's already more possible than I thought it was. That's already more
100%.
realistic than I thought. And
yes,
and it's huge because it's pointing out those things that I like to think about. Jealousy showing me things that I want or I admire, or I see that trait in myself that I haven't accomplished yet, or I haven't worked on yet. And so it's kind of a similar feel with that. Like, I'm really interested in this. What about that is telling me that I'm not quite there yet, or I want to be. So I love that. I love that activity. Yes.
Yeah. And it's so like fundamentally simple, right? And you will end up in a different set of conclusions or dreams or ideas than if we sat down and I point blank was like, what do you want? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's missing, right? You'd be like, you just like arbitrarily start coming up with things that you think are going to make you happy. But this really kind of gets below the surface in a way that's incredibly powerful.
You know, it would be fun to do that even like quarterly or once every 6 months or something. I mean, at first I was like, I would do that every week.
Yeah.
That might be, I might come up with the same stuff, but like even quarterly, I think would be great just to keep revising that and adding more and opening up your mind to more possibilities. So
I always integrate this in like my masterminds or when I'm working with coaching clients, and it's really cool. Women that I've either been working with continuously for years or have like kind of come in and out of my orbit based on their seasons of life to compare the first time they did it compared to after going through such expansion and like deeper into their journeys, like comparing it side by side. And it doesn't mean that the first one was wrong or bad. It was just like, that was a snapshot of like what they had the capacity to dream at that moment. And then the deeper they go down their journey, and it's like, you can find the threads that they're the exact same, but they're like, I have so much more capacity for what this could look like now. Like, I would have never in my wildest dreams written that down 2 years ago. And that is so cool. So cool. Because that's the like total recalibration of your reality, right?
Yeah. Your reality, and not only what's possible, but what's possible for you. Yeah. I love that.
And really, once you go down the path of realizing that everything's made up and that anything is possible.
Yes, girl. It's
like
so
literally, it's all made up and anything is possible. Like everything is just something we've all unanimously agreed to. So do literally whatever you want.
And I'm like, this is a game. This is a game, and I'm here to have the time of my life. I'm going to enjoy it while I'm here. Like, yes, everything is 100%. That is so true.
Which is like enlightening and sobering.
Yeah, no, it is. All right, well, we are going to wrap up, but thank you so much for this incredible conversation and the value you brought to all of our listeners. And girl, I'm going to go do that activity after this. Yay. So please share with our listeners where they can find you and how they can contact you.
Yes. Okay. If you loved this conversation, you'd probably dig my podcast. It's called Wild and Waking, just rebranded after years of being known as Gather in Growth, which is just the reflection of my identity evolution. So you really want to unpack some of these bigger questions, like the last year worth of episodes, you will watch me do it in real time, which is super cool. Besides that, I'm most active on Instagram at Emily Reuschel, EmilYReuschel. Threads, I pretty much just reuse to repost everything else I agree with. And Facebook's just a kick over from Instagram, let's be honest, but you
Yeah.
can find me there.
Perfect. And I will put all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Goddesses, for tuning in this week. And we are so happy to have you, Emily. I will see you all
Thank
next
you.
week.